Okay, so I officially welcome Adi Snir from Israel and in the moment from Edenkoben. Edenkoben is here in Rhineland-Pfalz. I don't know, is there an English name for Rhineland-Pfalz?
I don't know.
I don't know. So, please, we have to speak English. It's not so easy for all of us, maybe, but we will learn something, I guess.
I can speak less and play more music if that helps.
No, do it like you want.
Okay.
It's your choice.
Okay.
So please. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Hi. You're just so I know. This is the composition class. Yeah. And
Yes.
You're all in your first degree, master's degree, or
It's different.
Mix.
We have
Mixed.
a mix.
okay.
We have beginners and hopefully not enders.
Okay.
What is hopefully not finishers?
Okay, great. Okay, so I will just tell you really very shortly about myself, and then I hope we can dive quite quickly into some music. I started my musical journey quite early on as a child, and I mean, starting from playing piano at 5 and violin later and all this kind of stuff. But at some point, what caught me, and this is actually where I became more a professional musician, was around teenage age. I was around 15, 16, and I was playing saxophone at that point in my life, and got very involved in playing jazz, very serious into improvisation and this kind of stuff. And actually my composition journey starts from people that I met around doing this kind of improvisation work. As time moved on, the improvisation I was doing was freer and freer, and actually through that I met some people that kind of turned me on to a lot of contemporary music, which I found that there was quite a lot of interest for me there and quite a lot that I could relate to. And so that's actually where serious composition, I was playing around with writing some tunes and jazz tunes, but I think this kind of work was actually born to me from a very kind of in the moment state of mind. And then I went to study at the Tel Aviv Music Academy. It's in the Tel Aviv University, and afterwards I went to study composition at Harvard with Czaya Czerowin, which probably some of you know, and Hans Tutschku, and that's where I did my PhD. This was maybe I finished 5 years ago. Since then I've been back in Israel, living in Tel Aviv, and working as an ensemble member. So we have an ensemble called Musica Nova. You can, afterwards if you want, I can send you links and you can check us out. And teaching at the Music Academy in Tel Aviv, where I studied. And also I've been working in research, which I think will come into more relevance at the end of the kind of things that I'll be talking about, but just a very general idea, doing research, essentially neuroscience, and research on multisensory interaction, right? So this might be a bit hard in English, but the basic of it is psychoacoustics and the involvement of other senses and their overlap, right? So among other things, developing these technologies for hearing impaired, so people that are born deaf and this kind of stuff. For me, today it all ties in together, but these were a bunch of interests that I kind of collected over the years, working on different things, and I think today I'm going to touch more on the composition side, but if you have questions about how these things relate, or I think towards the end you'll see a bit more of it. Okay, so I'm going to start with a piece. Okay, actually this is a pre piece. This is when I arrived at Harvard for my PhD. The first thing I realized was that it might be out of the camera now. So hello. Yeah. So the first thing I realized was that I want to re-understand what I think. Because in first degree, probably a lot of you experience this, but you receive quite a lot of information, and quite a lot of technical information, and quite a lot of rules are given to you as part of the canon of music history and all this. And I felt that I need to take things apart for myself and figure out what I'm actually interested in. And so this piece was basically a sculpture version of how to do that, where I don't know if you can see from this far, but there's a piano that I basically took apart for all of its internal mechanism. You can see the internal mechanism here on the back, the hammer system, right? And it's connected to a pulley system, and this whole thing just becomes an installation where it's basically a visual installation. You have inside of this the piano there are motors that are playing on the strings inside, and in the back there's the pulley system basically takes this the hammer system goes like this. Basically it turns into like a crawling thing. And for me this was very symbolic. I called this piece concerto because I felt like this is what happens when you take an instrument and you kind of open it up, right, to the surrounding. In the physical version, right? And yeah, I'll move on. But for me, this was very important because it kind of gave me a grounding to start to take apart ideas.
Could we hear that?
I was looking actually now for the video. It's on Vimeo. I can send to you, but I can't find it. Okay. I think it was maybe taken down. I don't know. It's been some year, like 2-3 years since I last opened it. So, but yes.
What would you say if someone says it's like a style copy, like an invention of Bach?
Mm-hmm.
Because
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we already know that destruction of the instrument from Pecknam Jun, for example.
Yeah, I think this
60 years ago.
Well, so this was the thing. For me, it was very much about not only about taking it apart and destroying it, but actually to take the parts and to see how I can repurpose them for something new. And that is why, I mean, there's of course all these visual elements of the tubing and I mean these things blow basically onto the piano, but what you see, I'll describe the video to you basically, but there's a person, which is me in the video, right, moving a crank and basically playing this thing that makes almost no sound. It mostly goes up and scratches these canvases on the back, which it's climbing on. And the front is actually what is making the majority of the sound. And so yeah, I mean, for me, the reason for calling it concerto was exactly this kind of my need to keep this as part of my part of the musical discourse, not to just make it an installation. Yeah. I was working on other things with these kinds of titles a bit during this time, but yeah, I'll move to the next piece that I'm the next year, so you can see how it's close together. Okay, this is a piece for string quartet. We'll listen to the entire recording. Hello. Okay, the piece is called Chavasim 2 in situ.
Den musst du vielleicht nach vorne schieben.
Ja.
Oder du setzt dich hier in die Mitte. Das geht auch.
That's a nice punishment to put somebody to sit. Yeah. So this piece was born from it was born from my search to get to a new kind of structure, okay, a new kind of a way to compose, which would entail both a sense of I use the word improvisation, but I use it here in a very specific way. It's not really improvisation in the sense that the musicians can choose what they want to do freely. It's more improvisation in the sense that I'm giving them the opportunity to interact actively with the score. I'll show you some parts of the score in a moment. But what in essence happens in this work is that the musicians are asked to take a piece that looks a bit like this. Okay, this is some inspiration. This is taken from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Have you heard about these? No. Okay. These are findings of these were. This is one example, right? Many of them were found, but these are scrolls that were found from about 2,000 years ago in the desert in Israel, and these are actually scriptures from an ancient society living out there in the desert. I won't get into the details, but what interested me quite a lot about this kind of receiving this kind of text is that it's maybe a bit hard to see, but there's text written and the text disappears, and you constantly find yourself reading separate words of it, but in between you're not exactly sure how to put it back together. And now our understanding of this culture is very much based on seeing these texts, but the texts are actually not fully describing anything, or we essentially need to interpret quite a lot of what is there in order to make any sort of understanding for ourselves of what is there, right? So this for me was very interesting, and I thought, okay, this is a kind of way that I can consider interpretation, right? Interpretation as in the performers are taking a score, they're looking at it, they're interpreting, they're deciding how to work with it, and then they move on, which actually enables quite a lot of input from me as a composer, but at the same time gives them a lot of freedom to work around the piece as well. And so the performers are not asked to improvise, they're asked to put the piece back together, basically. Okay? I want to just skip just a second. I will open just a bit more of the score so that you can have a look. So, this forward back is quite strange, but yeah, okay. So, all right. Yeah. I will describe to you quite fairly quickly so that you can understand how to read it. This number, okay, it's basically what I have here is a few layers, okay. 1 is the number of the string of the instrument. 2 is the speed of the bow. Underneath you have this, which is the bow pressure. Then you have the position of the left hand, which is this circle with the muting marking. Arrow shows the direction of the bow. You'll see that it changes over time. And we have a bow length, which means this is essentially an entire bow, right? Start to finish. And I have, in a second in the presentation, I'll show you a bit more in detail. I just want you to get an idea so you can see how these things change, right? And the information, it disappears and it comes back, but it's not really that you can choose so easily what to do, right? I mean, if you look here, it disappears for a moment. Just let's look at the viola part, right? But it continues. So I'm giving them, the performers, a chance for freedom. Same time, the violin, the second violin, has a different material, but they can choose how to tie this material back to the former material that they were making. I'll just skip a few more. So in a way, for me, you know, often when you listen to music that is, you know, of the more what you would call like a complexity style, for those of you who know what this is, often it sounds like, okay, you know, there's this kind of thing there, but often you can also imagine, you know, someone improvising something like this, right? Or doing something else. And for me, what I really wanted to do here was to be able to for, you know, to put focus on the structure of the piece, the motion through the piece, while allowing them to maintain this kind of very close connection to the material. You can see that, you know, if you have this and you're reading from a score, you have to wait for this performer, right, for the second violin to do this so that you can move on, right? So this way the ensemble has to be, they have to be constantly in very, very close contact and very closely listening to what each other, to one another are doing. Okay, so I'm gonna close this score for a second. I'm just gonna show you some samples of the material.
I have a question for the score.
Yeah.
And the question is just for their understanding. You have there this blue parts, and you have some parts in the score. There's just nothing.
Yeah, blue is just your TV screen is a bit strange. It's just scribbled from a pencil, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's
I understand
not the color, but this. There are parts which are covered and parts which are just empty. Is there a difference between them, or?
Yes. Well, the way the score is presented, also in the description to the performers, is that it's as if it's an archaeological site. Okay, so you're going to have some things that have just been torn from. So you have a piece missing from something. And other things that you would have that are covered by dirt, dust, you know.
Okay.
So the terrain, it changes. I mean, the reason that this it was interesting, and we had also discussions about this with the quartet, is that when something gets covered, then you have to ask, okay, was someone covering this on purpose, you know? And also, if I move it, can I find what's still there? When something is missing, then it's a hole, right? And there's a bit of a different emotion connected to you know, to doing that.
But isn't it a big difference if something is missing in a syntactical context or in a non-syntactical context? So what these Dead Sea documents are in a syntactical, and yours not. I would say yours not. Maybe you can discuss about that.
I would. I mean, I agree. I agree to a certain extent, but I think there is. I don't actually have it on this presentation, but if you're interested, I can show more of these pieces. Some of them, I had a series of a few of these. They change and they use this technique in different ways. The string quartet is actually the first one where this is really happening. I think fully, and this is why I'm showing it also. But there are others that already involve electronics, and there are others that also add. For instance, the following one, number 3, it's a whole piece that is based off of a single page. That is very dense in material, and then by breaking it up into chunks and reordering it, the whole piece sort of manifests outward. So and in that case, I think the near syntax, right, that becomes is because you're hearing these repetitions of these different things. I think there's something to it. Here, the structure. I have more to say about the piece, so you're welcome to ask questions at any point. But maybe just let me describe other things, because maybe I'm going to answer already. I just want to show you, because it's a bit more than just this. I know it's always all right. Let's open this guy up. Okay, so the piece actually has 4 different layers. Okay, within this archaeological site, and the layers are created from different types of sound plus action. So as you can tell, the notation is about the action, but when I describe it in the preliminary pages to the score, they're actually defined as combinations of, you know, the speed of the bow, the pressure of the bow, the location that will create a certain type of sound. Okay, and these layers, they each have their own way of acting. Okay, so it has a sound and it also has a certain action. So it actually, what I call action is actually a rhythmic profile in some ways. Okay, and this when you hear the piece moving between these different layers, then I want you to try and remember this. I'm going to play you a few samples from the score. Okay, and then when we listen to the whole piece, I want you to try and understand how these layers are interacting. Okay. So, why is it not playing? There it is. Okay. Quite high pressure. Very, very slow bow. This is between 40 and 50 seconds for a bow. So the synchrony of the ensemble, sorry that I'm talking over it, but you will hear it in a moment in a nicer context. A lot of the synchrony of the ensemble is actually based on this structure. So moving in time, they need to be synchronized with these bow motions, and this underlies the entire piece actually. So it's kind of, I thought of it. Okay, maybe you will tell me how you heard it later, but there's actually this structure that goes underneath the entire piece, and you'll be able to hear it. So it's another model, another example. Sorry. And this voice or this layer, right, this combined layer, it constantly develops throughout the piece. You'll hear that it moves and it changes sound. Okay, this is the next one. These are kind of these twisty, I'm sure you've seen them before. Basically this notation says which strings to do this on. So the location of the lines, this is would be like you do it here or on here, right, on string 1 and 2, and then sometimes you have all 4 in some points where it's like here. Then it means like you're pressing in and you're trying to reach all 4, right? So there's kind of there's a built-in dynamic. I forgot to mention that there's quite an extreme scordatura to this piece, to all the instruments, and part of the idea was to kind of get different colors from each one of the strings, right, so that you can hear these changes that are happening. So that's going to be the second layer. Now you're going to hear it. It's not that, it's this. I'm going to skip to this one because it's a clearer example. So this again, it's a way to force a tutti from within a kind of flowing structure. Okay, now we have number 3. It's more these, I would call them white noise type sounds. So brushing basically in different directions. You can hear this up, down. Last but not least, Yeah, this layer is actually dedicated, if I remember correctly, it happens only in the cello, and you can hear it